Kia ora koutou. Welcome to the 5th webinar in Optimise online marketing webinar series. Today's topic is email marketing that converts to revenue. My name is Helen Bartle and I'm the Senior Advisor for Audience Development and Capability Building, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to this session. Excuse me. This morning's webinar will be presented by John Voigt of Chicago-based creative digital agency L2 Interactive, a leader in email marketing in the cultural sector. L2 Interactive works with some of the world's foremost arts organizations to facilitate effective email marketing campaigns. And they do this through their email marketing software, Mail2. Their impressive client base includes Australian Chamber Orchestra, High Museum of Art, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, Opera Australia, San Francisco Ballet, the Tech Museum, Melbourne Recital Centre, and New York festivals. We're incredibly fortunate to have this opportunity to tap into John's rich knowledge and recent experience with email marketing in the cultural sector. We will break midway through the webinar and at the end, so you will have an opportunity to ask John any questions you might have. You can use the Q&A box or the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to do this. And you're also currently on mute, but if you have a question you'd like to ask, we can unmute you. To unmute yourself, you press *6, and to mute yourself, you press *6. We'll also post the PowerPoint slides and the webinar recording on Creative New Zealand's website after the session. So now to today's session. It gives me great pleasure to hand over to John, who will lead us through today's webinar. John, over to you.
Great, thank you, Helen. As Helen mentioned, this is John Voigt with L2 Interactive and Mail2. There's our beautiful pictures. Hello, Helen. And there's my not-so-beautiful picture, John Voigt. And my title is Mail2 Onboarding Specialist, which essentially means that when an organization decides to join up with Mail2, my role is to escort that organization from setup through sending out your very first email campaigns, and then beyond that, helping all of our clients get the most out of the platform in terms of training, using the system, and then more importantly, doing a number of things that I'm going to talk about here today, which is kind of advising or consulting on how do I get the most out of my email marketing. And that's really what I'm here to share with you today, is provide you with some of my insights after working with over 100 plus performing arts organizations spanning the globe. And hopefully what you'll glean from here today are some really good best practices and things that you can take forward into your own email marketing and kind of go from there. That being said, as a marketer, what should we be expecting of email marketing? And I've come up with 4 fundamental elements that I think are core to driving success with email marketing. And I'm going to step through those 4 fundamental things. So what should we expect? Well, in my humble opinion, the golden rule of email marketing is really pretty straightforward, and that is send relevant content to patrons who want it. Permission-based email marketing is all about that, giving patrons information, content, opportunities to get involved with your organization on the terms that they want. And a part of that, it's real easy for organizations to kind of lose some of that. And one thing that I will always recommend when somebody comes to me and says, what's the most important thing? And that is having a clear permission statement so patrons know what to expect from your organization when it comes to your email marketing. So having a clear permission statement, having that available on your website when people opt in to receive email marketing from you, having it in the footer of your email campaigns when you send them out. It's important to have that. That helps set expectations between you and your patrons when it comes to your email marketing, and that's often overlooked. The next thing that kind of goes along with that is during the hustle and bustle of getting email marketing out and trying to coordinate that across all the other facets of marketing that you have on your plate, it's really easy to lose sight of that permission statement, of that of what you're promising your patrons. So I often recommend organizations to take a step back, find a time during the course of your busy year or season, and is your sending frequency really in line with what you promised your patrons or what they are expecting? This is one of the things that is constantly related back to me when people unsubscribe. I just got too much, or it wasn't the right stuff that I was expecting. So the organization was missing out on that particular patron's expectation. So it's a good idea to, on occasion, look at what you're actually doing in terms of your email marketing, and is it consistent with the expectation that you've set out for your patrons. Along with that, one thing that I continually say, and it often makes email marketers bristle, is fear not the unsubscribe. Making unsubscribing from your email marketing as simple as possible is really the right thing to do. A lot of times, if I say, hey, you should probably put like an unsubscribe link in your email campaigns in a more prominent place, and that might avoid spam complaints, I often get some pushback on that, and it's understandable. We don't want to lose people from our email marketing list. We want to grow them and want to keep them happy. But really the bottom line is, over time, people's interests are going to change, and ultimately they're just not going to be into you. You know, maybe their priorities changed. They don't have time to go to performing arts events like they used to. Maybe children came into the picture, whatever it might be. But anyway, don't fear the unsubscribe. Don't take it personally. Don't feel like you're losing out on anything. An unsubscribe, in my opinion, is always better than a spam complaint. And that kind of brings me to my next point. As part of your email marketing, monitor your spam complaints. Hopefully your email marketing software provides you with feedback on that. Every time you send a campaign, take note of how many spam complaints and look at that. If you are charting those types of things over time and measuring those things over time, a slow and steady uptick in spam complaints is going to tell you that you are probably out of alignment with your permission statement and your sending frequency and what your patrons are expecting. So keep an eye on those things, and remember the golden rule of email marketing. If you stick to relevant content to patrons who want it, you are going to be doing very well with your email marketing. Something else that marketers should expect of their email marketing program is that it's an extension of your website. And I feel pretty strongly about this. In my opinion, in my experience, the website of the organization tells the whole story of the organization. It's really about everything that you represent. It's the products and services that you deliver to them. It's the value that you add to their life. Maybe it's obviously the shows and performances and you know, the special events that you put on. Maybe it's also the educational opportunities you provide or the volunteer opportunities you provide. The website should really tell that whole story of the organization. And then email marketing becomes an extension of that. And what I believe is that email gets patrons' attention and leads them to the site. This website is where things happen, transactions happen, business is conducted on the website. So I'm really always looking at using just enough content in the email and then trust in click-throughs. We are a society, a culture, in all of the English-speaking world and beyond that, for that matter, we're dialed into those things that interest us. The way media functions today, television, the internet, email, we're all searching and kind of scanning those things that interest us, and it's pretty apparent that we're pretty good at picking out those things that interest us. So I always say use just enough content, trust that your patrons who are truly engaged with you are going to find that, and trust that they'll click through to the website. I recently did an onboarding session with an organization here in the U.S., and they were in the process of kind of rebuilding their website while they were coming up on our email marketing system. And as I was explaining that the website, that email marketing is an extension of the website, one of the people in my session said, so the email is kind of like a slice of bread and the website's the whole loaf. And I said, yeah, I didn't even expand on that. I would say that the email is maybe a slice or two of the bread, and the website's the whole bakery and all the different loaves that they can choose from. So I thought that was a pretty good analogy, and I've been using that quite a bit as the light bulb went on for that particular client of mine. What that is implicit in that, though, is that there has to be good coordination between your web content management and your email marketing. If those are the same people that handle the web content management of your website and they also handle email, great. You just have to be able to build that in. If those are separate entities within your organization, that does take some work and some coordination and understanding that email is an extension of your website. What else should I expect from my email marketing program? I'm a firm believer in the almighty click-to-open ratio. To me, this is the key performance metric that should be monitored on a campaign-by-campaign basis when I'm sending email marketing. And it's very simple. Click-to-open ratio is nothing more than the percentage of people that open the email but then clicked through to visit the website. And a lot of the conversations that I have about performance, I hear things, how many opens? What was the open rate? What was the open rate? Opens are fine. They're good to understand and know, but they don't tell the full story. I find myself personally, I'm a person that will open an email, scan very quickly, and then delete. Open, scan, delete. And I can run through a lot of emails in that way and not take action on any of them. So when you look at opens, kind of look at your own behaviors and know that a lot of times you leave something for later. You'll open an email and it'll stay there till later. But if you are an email marketer and you're looking at that click-to-open ratio, that is really a sign of potential business that's being transacted on the website. It means that people are working from your email to your website, and that's the important part. And like I said, this to me should be one of the key performance indicators of your email marketing program. You should be watching that and paying close attention to it. And just remember, it's the clickers that are your most engaged patrons. You may have a whole bunch of people in your email marketing database that open your campaigns, but really, when it comes down to it, what are we looking for? Engagement is going to the website, it's calling the box office, it's making a purchase. That's the ultimate goal. And your clickers are obviously your most engaged patrons. So pay attention to them and know that they are what drives your business. Another expectation that I would have of my email marketing program is the ability to monetize my email marketing efforts. And the best way that we have found to do this is to use Google Analytics e-commerce tracking. Hopefully your email marketing system allows you to at least bring in GA data, or you can use Google Analytics data in in tandem with any reporting you get from your email marketing system. With Mail2, we're able to connect very easily to Google Analytics, and we love it. What you're looking at here is a completed campaign report of one of our Mail2 clients, and this shows down here where e-commerce numbers can be attributed to this very specific email campaign. It essentially allows you to start dollarizing the impact that individual email campaigns have on your revenue. And we haven't found a way that's better than this to really get at that type of data. When it comes to setting up Google Analytics e-commerce, it basically involves working with Google, having your web developers work with basically some code from Google that they can supply to embed on your checkout page of your website that can pick up those transactional numbers and attribute them to a campaign in Google Analytics. Then hopefully you can kind of see how many transactions result from a certain email campaign, and it allows you to dollarize that on a campaign-by-campaign basis. In my example here, 14 transactions resulted from this email, created $2,143.50 worth of revenue. with an average value, and so on down the line. So being able to ultimately dollarize your email marketing efforts, I would have a strong expectation of that of my email marketing program, so I can see the value that it adds to my revenue stream. The next piece, I want to talk about some traits of effective email marketing that I've seen used by what I would consider the best email marketers that I work with and support. I got 5 best practices here that I've really kind of latched onto over the last 3 years or so that I've been with Mail2, and just want to relay some of these really good things that I'm seeing the best of the best do when it comes to email marketing in the arts sector. At the top of my list for best practices, contact engagement is key. Insist on quality over quantity. And really what that means is I don't care if you've got a gigantic database of valid email contacts and you send lots of email out to them. If only a small, relatively small percentage of that big list is listening, that is no more effective than a list that's a much smaller list that has a higher contact engagement level. Really, it kind of comes down to when people ask me, how can I get my engagement up across my email marketing database, across my patron base? First question I ask is, how much shouting at the void are you doing? In the little pie chart down here, and you'll have to forgive me, there is a math error on here. I just noticed this. But this pie chart is real typical of what I see when it comes to engagement levels within the performing arts segment. This pie chart, the green section of the pie chart, this represents 60% of the contacts in this particular database. And this database that I took this example from is well over 100,000. I think it's in the neighborhood of 125,000 contacts. So it's a good size database. 60% of those have some level of engagement. They have opens, clicks, etc., shares, you name it. There's a 2% sliver in here that haven't been sent any campaigns yet. Those are probably new contacts that just haven't had the opportunity to engage with the organization yet. Hopefully that's always a small sliver. Hopefully you're reaching out to new contacts as quickly and as expeditiously as possible. The blue part here, and that should read 38% for those of you keeping score with my bad math and my graphic. 38% with no engagement activity at all. That is almost 40% of the database that isn't listening. That's a sizable chunk. And how do you deal with that? One of the tools that I continually recommend to every organization is do what's called a re-engagement campaign, and do them at least once a year. Essentially, the way a re-engagement campaign works, once a year you scoop up all of your non-engaged contacts in your email marketing database, and you send them an email that politely says, hey, do you want to stay on our list? You have to have a good subject line to get them to pay attention to that. And when you send that out, some people will unsubscribe. Some people, hopefully very, very few, will mark it as spam. Some will take action and come in and manage their preferences and get re-engaged back with you, and a whole bunch will do nothing. And it's those that do nothing that you then have to kind of make a decision. And typically what I recommend in that particular case is to purge them, get rid of them. They're no longer listening, they're not adding value, they're taking up space in your database, and if your pricing structure is based on a number of email contacts in there, you might save a few dollars in the process of cutting the dead wood from your database. But really the big benefit that you will see is overall your metrics, if you are tracking your metrics, you will see significant upticks in all the key metrics that come into play when it comes to email marketing. So on an annual basis, re-engage. If they don't respond, purge. As far as a second best practice I feel pretty strongly about is simpler is better. When I look at sort of the overall design trend in email marketing today, I'm seeing emails become less text intensive. And that really kind of goes back to a point I made earlier. We're really conditioned as a culture in the era of new media to really look for and focus on what interests us. And the trend that I see in email design is more use of images, more use of teaser text, and more use of action links in place of full-blown articles inside the email body itself. And again, it kind of all goes back to email is just a slice or two, while the website is the whole bakery. Again, you have to have faith in your contact engagement and their ability to really zero in on what interests them, and then kind of design accordingly. Have faith that people will find and click through to what interests them mostly. A lot of times when I'm starting to work with a new organization, one of the things I'll often be asked is, our departments don't coordinate our email marketing very well. Can you help? And when it comes to email marketing, especially in organizations where you've got a development department, education department, maybe a group sales department, whatever it might be, that type of cross-functional coordination when it comes to email marketing, it becomes more and more important. And it really starts with your permission statement, your permission policy, your sending policy as an organization. Get together as an expanded team and talk about that. Establish your content and frequency rules that are consistent with that. We're going to send this type of content, and this lines up with our business plan this way and our season this way. Build an editorial calendar that incorporates all those different email communications to patrons, so you get kind of a holistic or a broader view of what everybody has on their plates or has in mind. You can start to look for synergies or places where, development wants to do a piece in this time around here, marketing has this kind of piece, education has a piece. Well, can we kind of find some common ground and maybe some type of newsletter that can incorporate all those different elements and give everybody the same amount of exposure, yet not don't inundate patrons with more email than what they really want or what they really can absorb. So that editorial calendar, I always ask for that. If you are trying to coordinate across departments, do you all share a common view of what needs to go out in terms of email? And then finally, work together to come up with an email creation and sending process that works across multiple departments. Make sure it's set up to ensure quality. Are things vetted correctly? Are the right people involved with the vetting process? When it comes to consistency, do you have design standards that are set that all departments have to adhere to? And then timeliness. Nothing will kind of irritate a patron if information is received too far in advance, too late. You kind of have to hit that sweet spot in terms of timeliness. If people expect to receive a monthly newsletter on or about the first of every month, you really need to kind of hit that if that's part of your expectations that you've laid out for your patrons. Another thing in the best practice realm that really jumps out is automate what makes sense. With Mail2, we have a lot of different ways to automate things, and there are platforms that have lots of other ways to automate things as well. Some of the best examples that come to mind are welcome emails, or what are called drip campaigns for new patrons. Basically, set up something so when somebody opts in to receive email marketing from you, connect with them right away. A welcome email at the very least that says, thank you for signing up. Here's what you can expect of us. Here's our permission statement, that type of thing. Drip campaigns are just kind of an expansion of that. If you've ever signed up for email marketing and all of a sudden you kind of sense that you're getting emails from that organization or that company on a very kind of a very consistent cadence, you're probably on what's called a drip campaign. And they're generally short little messages that will expose you to a little bit more information about the organization. And a lot of times they'll point you to, here's the website, here's what we do in this area, here's what we offer in this area, here's what we do here. And those are all set up to automatically deploy out to those new contacts that sign up to receive email marketing from you. Recurring calendar events emails. I'll have a great example of this in sort of the tail end of the presentation. But one of the coolest things I've seen is organizations that publish like a PDF calendar of events automate that. If you always have a PDF calendar of events that is out on your website and it gets updated in the first of every month, and you want people to download it, set up a recurring campaign that says, hey, by the way, here's your reminder to go download the latest calendar of events. Pre-show reminders, post-show follow-ups. If you're able to automate those types of things rather than preparing those things manually, they are massive time savers. The pre-show reminders, post-show follow-ups for people that have purchased tickets who are coming to performances or events, they love that stuff. They love that type of information. We've done a lot of work with organizations on this. They can be used to steer clients toward what they should or shouldn't do when they arrive at a performance. They can educate them about things that you offer beyond the performance itself. One of our early adopters of our automated pre-show reminders in the Mail2 platform, the Stratus Center in Tampa, Florida, they started putting restaurant information in their pre-show reminders. And as a result of that, once they started that, there was a 30% uptick in restaurant reservations just because they made people aware that there was an option, a dining option at the Stratus Center itself. If you can automate that type of thing, pre-show reminders, post-show follow-ups, maybe links to surveys in your post-show follow-up, that just saves lots and lots of time for the people that might be sending those out manually. And if your email marketing platform has a way to do other things beyond that, look at things like automating seasoned subscriber reminders or donor acknowledgments, things like that. But absolutely look at automating what makes sense. Segment, target, and test. I'm really not a fan of the term e-blast. It tends to be used a lot here in the U.S. They're called other things elsewhere. But there is kind of an e-blast mentality that goes along with the usage of that word. And that's send everything to everybody and see what sticks. With the tools and data that most email marketing platforms provide you today, it's much easier to be able to segment and target and really hit people with the information that they want. First off, when it comes to your opt-in choices, the lists that your patrons can subscribe to, definitely have some choices. Have some different things. Let them know that you have educational events or volunteer opportunities along with your general newsletter. Open those up, but don't get carried away. The more of those kind of opt-in lists that you have to support those, and you have to support those with content. Because if people sign up for something and all of a sudden they're not getting it, you're going to lose their interest. Or if they're getting too much, or it's all across the board, it can kind of get away from you. But provide choices in terms of things that they can subscribe to, lists that they can get on to receive that type of content that they're most interested in. Use patron segmenting to develop profiles and set up your email marketing to match those. You should be able to, depending on your ticketing system, obviously, you should be able to identify who your seasoned subscribers are, who your donors are, that type of thing. And if you're able to do that, use that information to target those special types of patrons differently than you would, say, maybe single ticket buyers, etc. Targeted email remarketing. This is kind of looking at engagement. Who opened, who clicked through, who took notice of this particular article or link into the website? Can I kind of scoop them up in my email marketing system and then maybe give them more information along that? They were interested in it enough to click through previously. Maybe I scoop up that those most interested or most engaged contacts that seem to favor that type of content that they went to, scoop that up and maybe use that to target them with a remarketing campaign, sweeten the deal on a promotion to those that showed some interest previously. And then lastly, testing. Using A/B split testing. If you're not familiar, A/B split testing is testing things like a different subject line, different versions of a subject line. Maybe 10% of your send list gets this subject version. Another 10% gets this one. You send those out, you kind of let those sit, see which version, which subject line garners more opens and click-throughs. Then the remaining 80% gets the winning version of that. Most systems are A and B. You have two versions, and you can test things like subject line, content, send time, sender name, sender email address, all kinds of different things can be tested to see which gets people to open and click through, what gets their attention. Mail 2, we do a lot of projects like this. We can actually do more than A and B versioning. We can do multivariate splits, A, B, C, D, but I love doing split testing projects with my clients because they really buck conventional wisdom. It really gets down to what is driving your patrons in your market with the content that you're providing. And you can't do that unless you get in and do that testing yourself. And then last, measure, measure, measure. Measure and communicate what matters. Within the arts segment, I don't see a lot of organizations do any type of measurement whatsoever when it comes to their email marketing effectiveness. It's very rare that I get phone calls or emails from organizations that say, hey, here's this really cool thing that I'm doing with measuring my email marketing. Usually it's the other way around. I'll ask the question in webinars and things like that. And I don't run into a lot of organizations that take the time to measure and communicate what really matters when it comes to their email marketing. And it really doesn't have to be that complex. I always say start small and build from there. The spreadsheet graphic that I'm showing here, this is from a project a couple years ago, a year or so ago, where I started, I helped a new organization that was coming up on our Mail2 platform get kind of pointed in a direction when it comes to setting up some type of measurement program for their email marketing. And we looked at the data that they had available to them and what was important to them. And we wanted to see if their database was growing or if it was shrinking when it comes to the number of active contacts they have. How much email were they sending? How many unique opens were they getting? The all-important click-to-open ratio. Was that trending up, trending down? Where was it headed? Spam and global unsubscribes. How many people were no longer interested to the point of a spam complaint or a global unsubscribe? Engagement conversion percentage. And then in the future, they wanted to add e-commerce into there. And this kind of became their little dashboard. On a weekly basis, they would go in, gather up these 5 or 6 data points, literally took like 15 minutes on a weekly basis. Then they made a commitment on a bi-weekly basis to review these as a team. And then they had some different comments and actions associated with that. Also at the bottom, you see that they had some different goals that they set for themselves. Kind of, I call them BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. You know, kind of goals that they could set out in the future and say, this is what we want to shoot for. Some of them may have been unreasonable, but over time, as you gather more data and kind of see where things are trending, you can always alter those goals, but at least you have a goal out there. For example, under click-to-open ratio, they wanted to get to a consistent average of 13% on their click-to-open ratio for all their campaigns, and they were right around 10.6 or so over time. So measure and communicate what matters. And again, start simple, but at least measure it. There's an old axiom, probably everybody has heard, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that's just as true with email marketing as it is with anything else. That being said, we'll take a little break for questions.
Thank you, John. That's fantastic. We do have a question from Arne Herman, who's from the Auckland Festival, and he's wanting to, in fact, Arne, if you want to unmute yourself, you could even ask the question if you're on the line, but otherwise you unmute by pressing *6. The click-throughs are always low, he says, and that's why we feel we have to get the most important part of the content across in the e-news item. So how do you feel about that, John? Do you have any comment to make? Because I guess that's always the temptation, really.
Yeah, and it's truly a balancing act. I don't know that there's ever a right amount of context. You know, say this in 10 words or less. I would never go as far as to advocate stripping down an email to that point. It's going to vary from organization to organization. Split testing content can help sort of bridge that. If you're able to do split testing, try a version that has the more expanded content in it, and then try another version that has less content in it. And what the difference is, you know, I wouldn't arbitrarily say shrink this by 85% and send this out. I would say find a good creative balance between the two, knowing that people are going to scan, and large blocks of text tend to get overlooked, and see what that does. So I don't know that there's kind of an arbitrary hack out that much content.
Yeah.
Compared to try to be creative and smart about it. How's that for sort of a non-answer?
Thank you. Vicky Allpress-Hill is also on the line from the Audience Connection, and we are running a benchmarking study which actually measures online behavior in the online marketing area. And Vicky, I don't know if you want to actually perhaps provide a couple of statistics around click-to-open rates for the New Zealand arts sector. Would that be useful?
Yeah, sure. It'd be interesting to hear your take on this, John, like how that compares with what you're seeing elsewhere. But we looked at the last almost 4 years of data that we could gather across 38 participants and found that the overall open rate average was 24.30% and the click-to-open rate 10%. But the open rates did range from 21 to 53%, and they were quite different, obviously, depending on type of email. So obviously, open rates are really high for the service-type emails and lower for the promo emails. But, you know, what sort of rates are you seeing, John, over there?
Vicki, that is across the board. That is really consistent with what I see in the U.S., consistent with what I see in the U.K., and consistent with what I see in Australia. It seems that that's about the magic zone, I guess, when it comes to overall statistics. There are outliers, obviously, to that. If I look at some of my highest performing organizations that you know are really dialed into engagement and that type of thing, you might see it bump up a little bit. But yeah, that is going to be consistent across the board with what I'm seeing in our client base.
That's really interesting. I just wanted to comment on your great recommendation about an annual re-engagement campaign and a purge. Obviously, that must be pretty terrifying when organizations do that purge to sort of drop. I mean, any sort of tips on how to get the courage to do this? Or another question is,
fantastic.
People not be getting sort of awareness of what you're doing, even if they're not acting?
Fantastic question. I'm going to answer that in two parts. If you wanted to test the waters of what it's like to do a re-engagement campaign, here's something that I recommend. And actually, I did this with a client in the UK. They had a large percentage of non-engaged contacts, upwards of, I want to say it was about a 50-50 split, and a contact database over I think over 250,000, so it's rather substantial. What I suggested was this, and it's always scary, yes, I could potentially lose a connection here. Yes, that can be scary. What I did is I had them agree to suppress out their non-engaged contacts from their weekly newsletter. We're actually going to look at a sample of the weekly newsletter that they send out. I said, suppress your non-engaged ones. And then next week, after you send this out, let's look at your metrics relative to this campaign and how it performed in the past. Let's see if you're losing anything or gaining anything. So we basically, for 1 week, just as a litmus test, we suppressed out the non-engagers. And we basically took them out of the equation. That gave them the courage to go, oh, the trade-off that we're seeing lift in our key metrics with our weekly newsletter, and if we cut these people out, I don't see that we're going to lose anything in our metrics, but we're going to save some money. So that's where they landed. Then the second part that you said, it slipped my mind as I was getting into that. How do you compel people to re-engage when you send a re-engagement campaign? There's no magic bullet for it, but the best thing you can do is come up with a good subject line that doesn't sound threatening. It doesn't sound, it's a balance between I'm respectful of your time and I want to make sure that you're getting the information that you want. But know that if you don't respond, we're not going to contact you anymore, is kind of the bottom line. And that's a little bit of a tightrope act that you have to follow. But it really kind of comes down to good, creative subject line writing. Then the email body itself should always be short to the point with a very prominent click here to unsubscribe, click here to stay on the list, manage your preferences. And the way I run it, a re-engagement campaign, if somebody doesn't, if they open and they don't unsubscribe, they stay in the list. It's really the ones that take no action, those are the ones that come up for debate, because the ones that unsubscribe, you already know that they're not interested. The ones that manage the preferences, yeah, they're going to stick, and we'll keep marketing to them. It's the ones that don't take any action that you have to kind of sort of make a decision. What do we do with it?
Sure.
But again, you can test for that type of thing.
Thanks, John. I think we'll push on if that's okay. We'll go on to part 2 because I know there's some fantastic stuff coming up. So we'll have questions at the end.
So we're always hearing mobile as we become a more mobile society, as technology advances and we're all becoming more mobile. What's the impact on your email marketing program? I'm going to start out with understand the mobile trend. And what I did here is I pulled 2 graphs of a U.S. client and a New Zealand client. The New Zealand client is on the left and the U.S. client is on the right. And when it comes to the open rates on mobile versus desktop, this is really typical of what I'm seeing across different countries, different markets. In the U.S., I'll start there. Mobile devices account for about 40% of your open rates, and that can vary a little bit. In the middle of the U.S., in the middle part of the country, big, sprawling, spread out, not so much the greatest cellular networks in the world. Mobile open rates tend to be a shade lower. When I look at the East Coast and West Coast of the U.S., high amounts of public transportation, a lot of people opening email and checking email on mobile devices, I see that go up. But on the average, about 40% right now of your readers are opening your emails on mobile devices. In New Zealand, I'm seeing that a little bit lower. Why exactly that is, I'm not sure. I would have to guess perhaps maybe cellular network infrastructure type of things. But this is pretty typical, right around 24% mobile open rates and a bit more in the desktop area. That's going to continue to expand no matter where you are. there's going to be more mobile devices and more people reading email on mobile devices. So it's only going to grow. I would say a year ago in the U.S. we were probably looking at mobile open rates down about the 30%. So within about a year it's expanding, and I see it going that way. So how are we responding to this as an email marketer? One real big thing is the use of responsive design emails, so you're optimizing the reader's experience when they open on a mobile device. And this is an example of responsive design. Emails can be set up with responsive design coding in them, so they basically will reformat themselves based on the device that they're being viewed on. In this particular example that I have right here, this campaign, this is actually Stratford Festival in Ontario, Canada. It's one of their example campaigns. In the layout, this is on a desktop view, this is a single column followed by 2 columns, and further down it actually goes to 3 columns. And when it's viewed on a desktop or webmail client, it keeps itself in that format, single column, double column, triple column. When it's viewed on a mobile device, it basically will stack all of the columns into a single column, so the end user doesn't have to scroll left and right when they're viewing the kind of the multi-column areas. It will stack them. The other thing that some mobile templates have the ability to do is create these action links. These are built into the templates that we offer as part of our platform. In the desktop version, it's just a read more link. It's just a link that can take somebody to whatever URL you want them to go to. In the mobile version, we actually turn that into a button, an action button. And why is that? Obviously, we've all thumbed through an email. If you're using an iPhone or a Droid to view an email, you know that you use your thumb to kind of navigate. And that action link is basically a bigger target. So a fat thumb like mine can hit that link on my very small mobile device. So responsive design email, definitely the trend that we're seeing. More and more organizations moving to responsive design to help the reader get more out of the email that they open on their mobile device. That begs the question, is desktop email dead? And I think it was just last week or the week before, Campaign Monitor published in their newsletter a study that they did, and I just want to share some of the stats that are in here. And in the follow-up information at the back of the slide deck, I have the link to the full article, but the big takeaways from this article were this. 41% of opens now happen on mobile devices. That's really consistent with what we see. A little bit higher, a little bit lower, depending on the market that you're in. 87% of clicks will happen when a reader opens an email the first time. Across the board, 87% of the time, if somebody's going to click through, and that means transact business, 87% of the time it will happen on the first open. That drops when you get when your campaign is opened on a mobile device. Only 78% of the time does that first open on a mobile device end up in a click-through. So there is a drop-off. People don't click through quite as much when they're on a mobile device. Could be that it's harder to read the website, so organizations, companies are going to mobile optimized websites as well. But here's the key one. Mobile readers who open emails a second time from their computer are 65% more likely to click through. So all is not lost if they don't click through on their mobile device. This is telling us that those that are truly interested, they've read your email on their mobile device, maybe in transit, maybe on a break, whatever. They've kept that in their mind, and those that come back to transact business on a computer, on a desktop, are 65% more likely to click through. So what does that mean? It kind of takes you back to the golden rule of email marketing. Send relevant content to patrons who want it. They're going to come back. They're going to remember you and come back to that second open and transact on business. So does it answer the question, is desktop email dead? No, I don't believe so. What it means, though, is you have to try to make an effort to make the two things work together. yes, know that you're going to get your opens on mobile devices. Know that if you have compelling content that people want, those that are going to transact business with you as a result of that email, oftentimes they're going to do that on a follow-up open. So be aware with that and know that you have to deal in both worlds today. Examples from around the world. I've got some screenshots of a number of campaigns that I pulled from a number of the organizations that I work with, and I want to share these. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump out of the PowerPoint presentation and show you these in a web browser. Before I do that, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through these. I'm going to start out with some examples of some e-newsletters that I find attractive, that are a balance of sort of the minimalist approach and then maybe a little bit more. I'll show you those. These are our newsletters that are sent on a regular cadence, typically to a full list of email subscribers. They're not targeted. They're the big wide open, forgive the term, e-blast. Targeted campaigns. I got some examples of campaigns that are sent to specific target audiences in mind. I just want to share some of those that I thought were good examples of that. And then also some examples of automated campaigns, a pre-show reminder, post-show follow-up, and then my Lincoln Center example that I talked about before. So I'm going to shift to my desktop. And can you confirm that you're now looking at scene notes in a web browser?
Yeah. Yes, we are, John. Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, great. All right, Stratford Festival in Ontario, Canada. This is their monthly newsletter, and they actually version this out. They send a version out to their season subscribers and then basically to everybody else. But very much relying on a very quick message. In this case, opening week is almost here, and then links off to their website that contain the bulk of the content. You know, a number of sub-articles that go along with their, that make up the content of their monthly newsletter. Pretty good high open rates, excellent click-through ratios on it. Just a good example of, if you're going to go minimalist, their hero image here gets to the point, gets to the big message, but then they have things that that people can look into more detail and click through easily. Goodman Theater in Chicago, their insider news for their season subscribers called In the Loop. This is a good balance of what is coming up soon, what's coming down the scene, or what's coming down the pipeline in terms of new shows, some behind-the-scenes information, advertising and artist encounter, and then some additional promos of things heading that are kind of being put on along with some of the things that the Goodman is doing. For example, they have a special menu at a local restaurant called the White Snake menu to go along with their production of White Snake. So they partner with that particular restaurant to do that. And then the Highland Games in Chicago to go along with their production of Brigadoon. And then a good use of Learn More buttons, Reserve Now buttons, etc., action buttons to get people to click through. Theatre Royal Concert Hall in Nottingham, England is a large performing arts center. They actually have two venues, and this is their weekly newsletter that goes out. It's very short to the point. It's here's what's new and on sale now. Within the next few days, here's what we have coming up at the theater. Action links to get more info, to book now, etc. And then the next few days in the Royal Concert Hall, Royal Concert Hall is actually more of a music venue, obviously, and they have very short, just thumbnails and Book Now buttons there. And then a one-column area for something that's kind of a little off the beaten path or not part of what they normally would do. In this case, this is a concert that you can sign up to sing along with an orchestra. And then obviously the social sharing icons and things like that. Really straight to the point. Real typical of what I see in performing arts centers that have to cycle a lot of things through in their messaging. I think they do a nice job, and they have a really good open rate, a good high engagement rate. Theatre Royal Concert Hall, this was actually the organization that I talked into suppressing out their non-engagers. And it was with their weekly newsletter that we did that test with. So we were able to do that test and kind of see what sort of impact we may have had if we were to do a big purge. And they did, by the way, decide to do a purge, and they are big advocates of chopping the dead wood from their email database. So 3 examples of newsletters that are sent on a regular cadence. Targeted campaigns, one from the Melbourne Recital Center. This one, although as far as campaigns go, it has a pretty significant amount of text. It makes sense to me. It works in here. Right off the bat, I know who I'm getting invited to see. Joe Henry. Immediate recognition in the hero image, and then I can skim through and find out more information. I've got places I can look for more information, that type of thing. But it's clear what I'm being shown here. It's clear if I'm interested in Joe Henry, I can look at this, I can dive in more. Sent to a targeted segment of their database that had purchased tickets previously to similar types of artists. So they basically use some segmentation from their CRM system to target those folks that they wanted to send this to. From the Adrian Arce Center in Miami, Florida, this is a piece that goes along with their education department. Their Camp Broadway that they hold at the Adrian Arce Center. The way to reserve for this, more information on the camp, bold use of buttons, plus they go with a toolbar at the top, or a navigation bar at the top, that's consistent with their website. Tickets, performances, dining, education, and membership is always present in their email campaigns. And then sort of subtly in the bottom portion of that, upcoming performances. And there you kind of have blended in marketing with an educational event and prominent ways to click through and get at what you would want to get at on the website. Royal Winnipeg Ballet. This was very interesting. Within about the last year, they launched a program called Access Point, and it is essentially to attract patrons under the age of 30 and expose them to ballet and educate them on ballet. So this was one of their targeted campaigns that went out to all their Access Point subscribers, their patrons that opted in to receive their Access Point newsletter. They do a quarterly newsletter, and then they do targeted promotions like this. In this case, this is a mixed program with a promo code in it. It gives them directions on how to take advantage of the offer, but sent out specifically to their targeted under 30 patron base. And then lastly, some examples of pre-show reminders. The Boston Pops, Boston Symphony Orchestra. This is their version of a performance reminder. Very bright, very engaging in terms of their color schemes, fitting of the Boston Pops. Links to planning your visit. A link to purchase a meal ahead of the performance. Their media center where you can go and listen to recorded concerts, other streaming content directions, And then the ever-present email sign-up. Do you want to get on our email sign-up list, like our regular email marketing list? In their particular case, their pre-show reminders get sent out kind of like transactional campaigns. If you have a ticket, you get a reminder that goes along with it. But this is their take on that. A pretty nice overall layout, good digestible content, and it definitely helps with lifting restaurant sales and getting people engaged. When it comes to a post-show follow-up, Kansas City Repertory Theater, they take a nice approach with this. Obviously, they want you to take a survey that records your experience and your feedback on going to the Kansas City Rep. That's the prominent piece of it. They also ask for a couple other things: rate us on Yelp, rate us on TripAdvisor. Here's a couple nice things that I see in this one. Their season subscriber appeal in here. Hey, if you like that, purchase or renew your subscription today. It gets that in front of them when somebody is fresh out of their theater experience, and hopefully they can convert some of those to season subscribers. And then pay it forward. They have a pay it forward program where if you forward that email to a friend, they can receive 20% off. And they get quite a few takers on this. They don't track it in super detail, but they do. It does give some lift to ticket sales as a result. So another thing I like about the KC Rep layouts that they go with, they do a real nice job of keeping sort of the support and donation piece subtle in all of their email marketing. There's always a button displayed either in the footer or elsewhere in the campaign. It just kind of keeps that out there without being over the top. There's always debate on when it kind of comes to donation type emails or appeals. Is directly going for it good business or not? I don't know. I have my opinions, probably a topic for another time. But KC Rep does a good job of kind of keeping that in their patrons' view. Lincoln Center, I talked about this one a little bit. This is a recurring campaign. It's automated, and I just love this idea. Basically, it's just a simple reminder. It's such a nice soft sell. Our monthly calendar of events is up to date. You can click here to download it, or you can go browse lincolncenter.org. This is set up first of the month. It goes out. There's tens of thousands of people that get this. The open rates are astronomical, 75 to 80%. And it just keeps people simply engaged, informed about what's coming up at Lincoln Center, very straight to the point, and very reliant, obviously, on click-throughs. So those are my examples. In the PowerPoint presentation that will get posted, the actual links that I have here are in there, or will be on the images in there, so you should be able to click through and pull up the same previews that I was showing here. So that being said, any more questions?
Thanks very much, John. Those examples were fantastic. It's really good to receive and be walked through some live examples, because I'm sure it sparked off lots of ideas and inspired a few of us on the line today. We are just slightly over time, so perhaps if there is one further question, we could take that. Otherwise, if not, I'd just like to thank you very much, John. It's been a brilliant webinar today, and it's really great to hear from someone that's so experienced in this area and works with so many organizations and cultural institutions across the globe. So, you know, we're really grateful that you've taken the time to be with us. And
my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
If anyone does have a question for John and they think about it after the webinar today, feel free to email it through to myself or Cassandra or even Vicky, and we'll be sure to pass that on. I would also like to let you all know that the 6th and final Optimise webinar is happening on the 25th of June, and that will be on search engine optimization and marketing. And we're delighted to announce that we have Tom Butland from Surefire Search, a New Zealand-based search engine marketing specialist, who will be presenting that webinar for us. Tom works with Auckland Live, amongst other cultural, education and entertainment clients, so it will be a great webinar to end the series on. And thank you very much to everyone who's joined us today. We hope you have a great rest of the week, and hopefully we'll see you in about 4 weeks' time. And thanks again, John.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time.